Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mind Map Academy. Today, we are going to talk about Chapter 5 of the Class 9 Political Science book. The title of the chapter is Democratic Rights. This chapter will help us understand the importance of rights in a democracy and how they are protected. Let's get started. In this chapter, we will cover 4 main topics. Life without rights. Rights in a democracy. Rights in the Indian Constitution. Expanding the scope of rights. These topics will help us understand the concept of rights and their significance in a democratic setup. Let us start with the first topic, where we will study life without rights. In this section, we will examine 3 examples to understand how citizens suffer without rights. These examples are Guantanamo Bay, Saudi Arabia, Kosovo. First, let's look at the example of Guantanamo Bay, where prisoners were denied basic human rights. On 11 September 2001, terrorists from Al-Qaeda attacked the World Trade Center in New York using hijacked planes. The Twin Towers collapsed, and around 3,000 people lost their lives. After 9 November, the US government detained around 600 people from various countries at Guantanamo Bay prison, accusing them of being enemies of the US. This prison became very controversial because of the way it handled the detainees. At Guantanamo, prisoners were denied basic rights, such as a fair trial. Some faced torture, and their families were not allowed to visit them. This treatment raised serious questions about human rights and justice. Next, let's examine Saudi Arabia, where the king rules and citizens are not given basic rights. In this country, a king rules. He has all the power and personally selects the members of both the legislature and the executive branches of the government. This means he controls how the country is run. Citizens here have no right to form political parties or organizations. This limits their ability to challenge the king's authority or participate in the political process. There is no freedom of religion in this country. People are not free to practice their faith as they choose, which can lead to serious restrictions on their personal beliefs. Women face many public restrictions in this country. Their rights are limited, and they are often not allowed to participate freely in society. Lastly, let's discuss Kosovo, where minority rights were not protected, resulting in large-scale violence. Kosovo used to be a province in the country of Yugoslavia. Most of the people in Kosovo were Albanian, but across the whole country, the Serbs made up the majority. Then, a Serb nationalist named Milosevic won the election. He was very hostile toward the Kosovo Albanians and treated them unfairly. Milosevic wanted the Albanians to either leave the country or accept Serb control. He even ordered the army to use violence in Kosovo to enforce this. From these 3 examples, we can clearly understand how miserable life can become without rights. Now, let us summarize the importance of rights. Rights are crucial for several reasons. In a democracy, rights like voting and running for office allow citizens to express their opinions and participate in political activities. Rights act as guarantees for citizens when the government itself may fail to protect or respect these rights. Finally, rights protect minorities from being oppressed by the majority, ensuring everyone is treated fairly. After understanding the importance of rights, let's discuss the qualities of rights. To be considered a right, the claim must have 3 important qualities. 1. The claim should be reasonable, meaning it must be fair and just. 2. It should be recognized by society as important and accepted by people. 3. Finally, it must be backed by law, meaning it is protected and enforced by legal rules. Having understood the importance and qualities of rights, we will now discuss several fundamental rights provided by India's Constitution to its citizens. Our Constitution provides for 6 fundamental rights. 1. Right to equality. 2. Right to freedom. 3. Right against exploitation. 4. Right to freedom of religion. 5. Cultural and educational rights. 6. Right to constitutional remedies. Let's discuss these rights in detail, one by one. The first fundamental right is the right to equality. The right to equality is a fundamental principle that ensures fairness for all citizens. Ground: according to this right, the government cannot discriminate against any citizen based on religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Inclusivity: the right to equality ensures that every citizen must have access to public places like shops, restaurants, hotels, and cinema halls. Access for all: there should be no restrictions on using public wells, tanks, roads, and playgrounds. Equal employment opportunities: all citizens should have equal opportunities in employment and appointments to government positions. The next fundamental right in the Indian Constitution is the right to freedom. Under the Indian Constitution, all citizens have the right to freedom of speech and expression, assemble in a peaceful manner, form associations and unions, move freely throughout the country, reside in any part of the country, practice any profession or carry on any occupation, trade, or business. However, you cannot exercise your freedom in such a manner that it violates others' rights to freedom. This ensures that while everyone has the liberty to express and act freely, it must be done with respect for the freedoms and rights of others. Now, let's discuss the right against exploitation. This right ensures that every citizen is protected from exploitation. It addresses 3 specific evils. Prohibition of human trafficking: the Constitution prohibits traffic in human beings. This means that the buying and selling of human beings, typically women, for immoral purposes, is illegal. Prohibition of begar: the Constitution prohibits forced labor or begar in any form. Begar is a practice where workers are forced to render service to the master free of charge or at nominal remuneration. Prohibition of child labor: the Constitution prohibits the employment of children below the age of 14 in any factory, mine, or other hazardous works such as railways and ports. This right ensures that no one is subjected to any form of exploitation, providing a safe and just environment for all citizens. Next, we will look at the right to freedom of religion. According to this right, every person in India has the right to profess, practice, and propagate the religion they believe in. However, freedom to practice religion does not mean that a person can do anything in the name of religion. No person has the right to compel another person to convert to their religion. One cannot sacrifice animals or human beings. India is a secular state, meaning it does not establish any one religion as the official religion. The government cannot compel any person to pay taxes for the promotion or maintenance of any particular religion. Also, there shall be no religious instruction in government educational institutions. Let's now discuss cultural and educational rights. The Indian Constitution specifies the cultural and educational rights of minorities. These rights ensure that minorities can preserve their distinct language, script, or culture. Key aspects include right to conserve culture. Any section of citizens with a distinct language or culture has the right to conserve it. Right to educational institutions. Admission to any educational institution maintained by the government or receiving government aid cannot be denied to any citizen on the grounds of religion or language. Right to establish and administer educational institutions. All minorities have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. These rights ensure that minority groups are not discriminated against and can maintain their cultural heritage. Now, a question might come to your mind. The Constitution provides us with fundamental rights to make our lives free and meaningful. But what if these rights are violated? Who will protect our rights? What if Parliament passes a law that violates fundamental rights? Or, what if the government takes action that restricts the fundamental rights of citizens? Or, what if a private organization or any individual limits the rights of citizens? These questions were equally important to the Constitution makers. Hence, to resolve these doubts, they provided another important right in the Constitution, the right to constitutional remedies. Due to its importance, Dr. Ambedkar called the right to constitutional remedies the heart and soul of the Indian Constitution. This right empowers citizens to directly approach the Supreme Court or High Courts if their fundamental rights are violated. The Supreme Court and High Courts have the power to issue directions, orders, or writs for the enforcement of fundamental rights. Hence, you can directly approach the Supreme Court or High Court if your rights are violated. Fundamental rights are guaranteed against the actions of the legislature, the executive, and any other authorities instituted by the government. There can be no law or action that violates fundamental rights. Let's look at the expanding scope of rights. Fundamental rights are the source of all rights, and over the years, their scope has expanded. From time to time, the courts have given judgments to expand the scope of rights. For example, right to freedom of the press. It is derived from the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression. Right to information. Parliament has passed a law providing the right to information. It ensures transparency and accountability in governance. Right to education. School education has become a right for Indian citizens. The government is responsible for providing free and compulsory education to all children up to the age of 14 years. These additional rights enhance the democratic framework and ensure that citizens can fully participate in the democratic process. The court has passed various judgments to expand fundamental rights. The rights have been expanded to include the right to food, right to a clean environment, and right to privacy. Thank you for your attention. Please remember to like and subscribe to Mindmap Academy for more educational content.